There is a channel on the British television intended for the ages of 0 to 7 years old. It's called CBBS. It's day delights in young children's shows, most of which are educational, teaching them to count and spell, plant flowers and vegetables, and even to cook. But there is one show that I have since delved into, and it's behind the innocence of a bedtime show that readies children for slumber. That one show is called In the Night Garden. The show opens with a child left out to sea with a little light and a blanket for a sail. I had always found out that rather odd, but nonetheless the show seemed rather endearing, and there is a sweet girl who appears amongst daisies, aptly named Upsy Daisy, a bloodish-colored toddler who seemed to be the main character, whose name is Iggle Piggle, and the other fun characters such as the tiny wooden dolls called the Pontipines and the Wuntenators, some triplets called the Tombaloos, and the rock-obsessed thing called Macapaka. Some inanimate inflatables called the Haus and the modes of transportation or rather seem fluctuate. The train of sorts it's called Ninky Nonk, and the Zeppelin called the Pinky Ponk. Also some delightful but strange recolorings of the bird called the Titiviers. You've had thought these were just lovable imagining things as a child, but then again, you'd be so unfortunately correct. I cannot divulge in how I know and what I know that there is a truth behind In the Night Garden. A selfish couple who, born a son, found themselves boozing at the park, partaking in narcotics. This poor 3-year-old boy was left to watch his parents fall into a stupor, leaving him invulnerable, lonely, and unloved. The one time the little boy had any fun was when he was at the nursery. He would play with all of his friends, and he couldn't wait to see his friend Daisy. He'd grown quite fond of her, and they were the closest of friends. They always danced and played together, the boy usually tuckering himself out and falling asleep on his red little blankie. The other toddlers who attended were just the funniest sort, and they were 3 boys who were triplets. They seemed rather close, always coordinated clothing and tumbling all over the place. One boy would often ask to play outside. He loved to pick up stones and stack them in freeze. He often take them to the sink and use the sponges to clean them. The other toddlers thought it was odd, but the stone-obsessed child liked to offer the shiny pebble or rock as a token of his friendship, and the others gladly accepted this. Within the nursery, there were quite an array of toys. The little boy's favorite toys were a train set and the radio-controlled Zeppelin that was made of aluminum and helium. Much like those floating sharks, it would stay afloat near the ceiling, its unusual colors highlighted by the light through the window. Among the other toys, there were some large, fun inflatables that the children often liked to play and jump and bounce on. A little doll's house with the neighboring dolls had a colorful bouncy balls amongst various others. Outside in the far corner of the nursery garden was a small aviary of various colored birds. The little boy would often in delight, hearing the birdsong and chirps throughout this time fair. At the nursery is where he would find his escape, where the nursery workers had care for him, and the local elderly man would come into them to read stories for them, into which he was very fond of. The old man would give funny names out to the dolls and paid special attention to the boy with the blanket. He made himself feel safe. But unfortunately for him, the little boy would soon have to face the cold hard reality of this cold and unloving home. That day his father would pick him up, but he'd never see the dark gloomy interiors of his room again. Sitting quietly in the back of the dingy cigarette-end-filled car, the little boy would, as always, stay quiet, just peering out the window. The drive, he realized, he was taking longer than it should. Looking out the window, he found himself in unfamiliar landscapes. He looked at where his father saw in the reflection of the rearview mirror, catching his eye and furrowed the brow. The young boy stayed quiet and held onto his blanket tightly. Having it fallen into a slumber, the confused and scared toddler could see that the sky had turned into dusk, and the stars glistening the night sky as the sun had just set. His father had rolled down the window. Of the roaring sea could be heard close by, a distant smell of sea air. He had never been to the beach before. But why so late? The father pulled up to a beach, parking at the far end behind the dune, keeping the car out of sight. Getting out of the car, he opened the front door for the little boy, dazed and confused as he stepped down to the sand. "Why at the beach, Daddy?" the little boy asked, trembling, confused and cold as his arms were exposed to the cold night air through the short sleeves. The father said nothing and picked up the boy up. The boy was clinging onto his blanket, crying and wailing as his father tightened his grip, applying his hand to his mouth to silence him. The little boy struggled before giving in, crying silently as his unloving father wrapped him in his blanket. The little boy thought maybe for a second he was going to try and warm him up, and taking him to a strange night walk across the shore. His father remaining quiet bar at the odd mumble. He pulled out a torch and shone it around the beach as if he were looking for something, and he knew he was there. He found out what he was looking for, and the boy had gotten quite tired from the whole ordeal, his head bobbing in and out of consciousness on his father's shoulder. Without a second thought, the man led the boy on an old wooden boat. By this time the boy was drifting, opening his eyes in confusion, but too tired to even cold to retaliate. The man pushed the boat on the shore and began wading out to sea. The tide was strong as he went for one last push, and he dropped his torch before the boat, before his son began to drift out into the horizon, leaving him to the fate of the ocean. His parents had finally abandoned him in the cruelest way imaginable. The boy's eyes began to flutter as he saw a glimmer from the light of the torch, and then nothing but stars above him. He held onto this little red blanket his father had wrapped him in, and watched the stars as he began to drift back to a deep, hypothermic-induced sleep. This would see his body eventually turn into a shade of death, and the bloat as he would inevitably diminish as he drifted deeper and over the dark waters. The last thing he sees is the deep dark blackness of the sky and the North Star shining bright. Fading into what be his last dream, he could ever hear the old man, as if he was reading to him. "Someone I know is safe and snug, and drifting off to sleep. Round and around, a little boat, no bigger than your hand, out in the ocean, far away from land. Take the little sail down, the little light. This is the way to the garden in the night." Now you know why Iggle Pickle is the only one who is not in bed. It's all because it's in his head. Good night.